You've been chasing something your entire life, and the faster you run toward it, the further away it seems to drift. What if I told you your purpose isn't hiding from you at all? There's a peculiar restlessness that lives in the human heart. You felt it, that quiet voice in the early morning hours, asking, is this all there is? That stirring when you watch someone living fully alive, doing what they love, radiating meaning, and you wonder why that clarity hasn't found you yet. You read the books, you journal, you set intentions, you ask the universe for signs, and still, nothing concrete appears. No burning bush, no lightning bolt of revelation. Just the same questions, circling back like birds that have nowhere to land. So you try harder. You search deeper. You attend the workshops, listen to the podcasts, scroll through quotes from sages and poets, hoping one sentence will unlock everything. And for a moment, it does. You feel it, a flicker of recognition, a warmth in your chest. You think, yes, this is it. But by the next morning, the feeling has faded, and you're back where you started, standing in the fog, looking for something you can't quite name. Here's what nobody tells you. The search itself has become the problem. Not because seeking is wrong, but because you've been taught to look for purpose the same way you'd look for a lost set of keys. As if it's a thing, a destination, a fixed point on a map you just haven't reached yet. As if one day you'll stumble upon it, dust it off, and finally say, ah, there you are. But purpose isn't an object. It isn't waiting for you somewhere out there, beyond the next achievement, the next awakening, the next version of yourself. It isn't a prize at the end of a spiritual scavenger hunt. Purpose is more like water. It doesn't stay still. It flows. It changes shape depending on the container it fills. And it's been with you all along, moving beneath the surface of your life, quiet and constant, even when you couldn't see it. The reason your purpose keeps hiding from you isn't because you're not worthy of finding it. It's because you've been conditioned to believe that meaning comes from something outside yourself, that it must be grand, visible, celebrated, that it needs to look a certain way to count. You think your purpose should arrive with certainty, with clarity, with an instruction manual and a title. This is who you are. This is what you're meant to do. But life doesn't work that way. Meaning doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It whispers. And most of the time, we're too busy shouting our questions into the void to hear it. The truth is, you've been standing in your purpose while searching for it. You've been living it in the small moments you dismissed as insignificant. In the way you listen when someone needs to be heard. In the way you create even when no one's watching. In the way you show up even on the days when you don't feel like you matter. But you don't recognize it because it doesn't match the picture in your mind. The picture that says purpose must be loud, important, admired. That it must change the world in visible ways. That it must be something you can point to and say, this is why I'm here, and so you keep searching, you keep reaching. You keep waiting for the moment when everything clicks into place and your life finally makes sense. But that moment doesn't come. Not because you're broken or lost or doing something wrong, but because you're looking for an ending to a story that was never meant to have one. Purpose isn't a conclusion. It's not a state of arrival. It's not something you find and then hold on to forever. It's something you inhabit, something you become. Again and again, in 1,000 different ways. across a lifetime of unfolding. The Sufis have a teaching: the one who seeks finds nothing. The one who stops seeking discovers everything. It sounds like a riddle, doesn't it? But it's pointing to something essential. When you stop grasping, when you stop demanding answers from the future, when you stop treating this moment as incomplete, something shifts. Not out there, in here, in the space between your thoughts, in the quiet that lives beneath your questions. You begin to notice what was always present. The aliveness in your hands when you touch something beautiful. The tenderness that rises when you see someone struggling. The inexplicable pull towards certain work, certain people, certain expressions of your soul. These aren't distractions from your purpose. They are the language of it, speaking softly, constantly, inviting you to pay attention. But we've forgotten how to listen. We've been trained to trust only what can be named, measured, validated by others. We've been told that if we can't explain our purpose in a single sentence, we don't really have one. And so we silence the whispers. We override the subtle knowing. We wait for something louder, clearer, more certain. And in that waiting, we miss the life that's already happening. So let me ask you something. What if your purpose has never been hiding? What if the real question isn't, what is my purpose? But, what have I been too afraid to see? There's a story we tell ourselves about how meaning works. It goes like this: one day something will happen. A realization, a revelation, a moment of divine clarity. And in that moment, everything will finally make sense. The confusion will lift. The path will illuminate. And you'll know, without a shadow of doubt, exactly why you're here and what you're meant to do. This story is seductive. It's also a trap, because it teaches you to live in the future, to postpone your presence, to treat today as a rehearsal for some better, clearer version of your life that's waiting around the corner. And as long as you believe that story, you'll never fully land in the life you're already living. The ego loves this narrative. It thrives on delay, on incompleteness, on the promise that you're not quite there yet, but you could be if you just work harder, search longer, become more enlightened. The ego needs the story of the lost purpose because it keeps you striving, seeking, comparing. It keeps you in the game of self-improvement, which is really just the game of self-doubt dressed up in spiritual language. But here's the paradox: the more you search for purpose, the more elusive it becomes. Not because it's hiding, but because the very act of searching creates distance. It reinforces the belief that you are separate from what you seek, that you are incomplete. That meaning is something you lack, and you don't lack anything. Alan Watts once said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet everybody rushes around in a great panic, as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. Read that again, slowly. The meaning of life is just to be alive, not to accomplish, not to achieve, not to prove. Just to be, fully, presently, without apology. But we've been conditioned to believe that being isn't enough. That existence without productivity is worthless. That a life without a clear, marketable purpose is a life wasted. And so we turn our lives into projects. We turn ourselves into problems that need solving. And in doing so, we abandon the only moment that ever truly exists, this one. Your purpose isn't something you discover in the future. It's something you recognize in the present. And you recognize it not through thinking, but through feeling. Through the quiet resonance that arises when you're doing something that aligns with who you actually are, not who you think you should be. It's in the moments when time disappears, when you lose yourself in something so completely that the questions stop, when you're so absorbed in the act of creating, connecting, serving, or simply being that the need for validation falls away. Those moments, that's your purpose speaking, not in words, in presence. But we dismiss these moments. We think they're too small, too ordinary, too unimpressive to mean anything. We think purpose must be something we can announce, something that sounds important when we say it out loud, something that makes other people nod and say, "Ah, yes, that makes sense." And so we overlook the quiet callings, the subtle joys, the small acts of care that make us feel most alive. We wait for permission from the world to claim these things as meaningful. But the world will never give you that permission, because the world is busy asking the same questions you are, trapped in the same illusion. The illusion is this: that meaning is rare, that it must be earned, that it exists only in exceptional circumstances or extraordinary lives. But meaning is abundant. It's woven into the fabric of every moment, every interaction, every breath. You just have to stop looking past it. Zen teaches something profound. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The tasks don't change. The life doesn't become dramatically different. What changes is your relationship to the life you're already living. You stop waiting for it to be something other than what it is. You stop demanding that it justify itself. And in that acceptance, something opens. Not a revelation, not a grand cosmic answer. Just a quiet knowing that you are exactly where you need to be. That this life, with all its ordinariness, all its imperfection, all its unresolved questions, this is it. This is the canvas. This is the opportunity. This is the invitation. Your purpose isn't hiding in some future version of yourself. It's not locked behind a door you haven't found the key to. It's right here, in the way you love, in the way you create, in the way you show up for the people and moments that move you, in the way you breathe through difficulty and choose presence over distraction. But you won't see it until you stop looking for it as something separate from your life. Until you stop treating your existence as a puzzle to solve and start experiencing it as a gift to receive. The Sufis say, "Die before you die." What they mean is, let the false self die. The self that needs to be someone. The self that's afraid of being ordinary. The self that demands certainty before it can relax. When that self dies or even just loosens its grip, what remains is the truth of who you've always been. Not as a role, not as an achievement, but as awareness itself, as the space in which everything happens. And from that space, purpose isn't something you chase. It's something you live, naturally, effortlessly, without needing to prove it to anyone, including yourself. So what does this mean for you? Right now, in the middle of your life, let's bring this down from the philosophical clouds and into your actual, breathing, complicated life. Because understanding something intellectually is one thing. Living it is another. If your purpose has been here all along, if it's been woven into the moments you've been dismissing as insignificant, then the work isn't about finding something new. It's about recognizing what's already present. It's about learning to see differently, and that requires practice. Not the kind of practice that adds more to your to-do list. The kind that subtracts, that strips away the noise. That teaches you to listen beneath the surface of your thoughts. Here's where you begin with attention. Most of us move through life on autopilot. We're so busy managing, planning, achieving, and surviving that we barely register what's actually happening. We're mentally 3 steps ahead or 3 steps behind, but rarely here. And when you're not here, you can't recognize the quiet signals your life is sending you. So start by asking yourself this question. What made me feel most alive this week? Not what impressed other people. Not what looked good on paper. Not what moved you closer to some imagined goal. What made you feel alive? What moments caused time to slow down? When did you feel most like yourself, unguarded, unperformed, unfiltered? Maybe it was a conversation that went deep. Maybe it was the way light hit the wall in the morning. Maybe it was solving a problem, writing a sentence, helping a stranger, cooking a meal, or sitting in silence with someone you love. Whatever it wasn't random. It was a clue. Your aliveness is always pointing you toward something true. It's the thread you're meant to follow. Not because it leads to some grand destination, but because it connects you to the present moment, the only place where life actually happens. But we've been trained to ignore these clues. We think that if something feels easy or natural, it can't be important. We believe that purpose must be difficult, must require sacrifice, must feel like climbing a mountain. And so we chase the hard things while overlooking the things that bring us joy. We think joy is frivolous, a distraction, something to indulge in after we've found our purpose. But joy isn't separate from purpose. Joy is the compass. When you feel genuinely joyful, not entertained, not distracted, but deeply, quietly joyful, you're in alignment. You're touching something real. And that's where your purpose lies. Not in the suffering, not in the striving, in the resonance. Now, here's the difficult part. You have to be willing to trust what you find. Even if it doesn't make sense. Even if it doesn't fit the narrative you've built about who you're supposed to be. Even if it seems too simple, too small, too ordinary to count. One of the cruelest tricks of the mind is that it will show you the truth and then immediately talk you out of it. You'll feel the pull toward something, a way of being, a form of expression, a kind of service, and within seconds, the doubts will arrive. But that's not practical. That won't pay the bills. That's not what people expect from me. Who am I to think I could do that? And so you silence it. You override the knowing. You return to the search, looking for something more credible, more defensible, more aligned with what you think your life should look like. And the cycle continues. Breaking this cycle doesn't require a dramatic shift. It requires a quiet commitment, a willingness to honor the small truths, even when they don't come with guarantees, a willingness to experiment, to try, to follow the thread without knowing where it leads. Here's a practice for the next week. Pay attention to what you're drawn to, not what you think you should be drawn to. What you are drawn to, the books that call to you, the conversations that energize you, the work that makes you lose track of time, the people who make you feel like you can breathe more deeply. Don't judge it. Don't analyze it. Don't try to turn it into a plan. Just notice. Write it down if you want, or don't. The important thing is that you're beginning to listen. You're tuning into the frequency of your own life instead of the static of everyone else's expectations. And as you do this, something will start to shift, not all at once. Gradually, you'll begin to see patterns, themes, a certain quality of energy that shows up again and again. That's not coincidence, that's signal. That's your purpose, speaking in the only language it knows through your lived experience. You might also notice resistance. The voice that says, "This can't be it. This isn't enough. I need something bigger, clearer, more important." That voice isn't your enemy. It's just afraid. Afraid that if you stop searching, you'll stop growing. Afraid that if you accept where you are, you'll never become who you're meant to be. But the opposite is true. When you stop rejecting the present, when you stop treating your life as insufficient, you create space for something deeper to emerge, not from effort, from presence, from the simple act of being here fully, without the constant need to be somewhere else. Rumi said, "Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray. That pull, it's been there your whole life, gentle, persistent, waiting for you to stop running long enough to feel it. And when you finally do stop, something beautiful happens." So here we are, at the end of the search, or maybe at the beginning of something else entirely. You came here looking for answers, looking for the missing piece, the secret, the reason your purpose keeps hiding from you. And what you've discovered is this: it was never hiding. You were just looking in the wrong direction. You were looking out there in the future, in achievements, in validation, in some imagined version of yourself that has it all figured out. But your purpose was never out there. It was in here, in the quiet space between your thoughts, in the way your body relaxes when you're doing something that feels true, in the moments when you forget to perform and simply exist. This is the paradox at the heart of every spiritual teaching. Every wisdom tradition, every honest conversation about meaning. What you're searching for is doing the searching. The awareness that longs to know its purpose is the purpose. The aliveness that asks, "Why am I here?" is the answer. You are not a problem to solve. You are not incomplete. You are not waiting for permission to begin. You are already whole, already enough, already living the life that is uniquely yours to live. But the mind resists this. Because if it's true, if you're already where you need to be, then what? What happens to all the plans, the goals, the striving? What happens to the part of you that's been building an identity around becoming someone? It relaxes. It softens. It realizes it's been carrying a weight it never needed to carry. And in that realization, something opens. Not a new path, a new way of walking the path you're already on, with less resistance, less judgment, less fear that you're doing it wrong. You begin to trust the unfolding, to trust that even when you don't have the answers, you're still exactly where you need to be. Jay Shetty asks, what if your purpose isn't something you choose, but something you uncover by being who you are? And that's the invitation. To stop trying to construct a purpose from the outside in. To stop demanding that your life look a certain way before it can mean something. And instead, to let your purpose reveal itself from the inside out. Through your attention, through your presence, through the way you show up, moment by moment, day by day. You don't need a title. You don't need a platform. You don't need to change the world in visible ways. Your purpose is quieter than that, and infinitely more powerful. It's in the way you make people feel seen. The way you bring beauty into small spaces. The way you refuse to abandon yourself, even when it would be easier. The way you choose kindness when the world rewards cruelty. The way you keep showing up, even when no one's watching. That's not insignificant. That's not small. That's the work, the real work. The work that doesn't make headlines, but holds the world together. And maybe that's what your soul has been trying to tell you all along, that you don't need to be extraordinary to matter. You just need to be here, awake, present, willing to give yourself fully to this moment, and then the next, and then the next. That's enough. That's everything. So what now? What happens when you stop searching? You start living, not in some distant, perfected future, right now. In this messy, imperfect, unfinished life, you start noticing the light, the people, the opportunities to love, to create, to connect, to serve. You start saying yes to the small callings, trusting that they'll lead you somewhere true, even if you can't see where yet. You start letting go of the need to have it all figured out, because you realize that certainty isn't the goal. Presence is. Aliveness is. Being fully here in whatever is happening without needing it to be different. And in that presence, you discover something profound. Your purpose isn't something you achieve. It's something you remember. It's the recognition that you've always been enough, that your existence, exactly as it is already meaningful, already sacred, already whole. The Sufis say, when the heart weeps for what it has lost, the spirit laughs for what it has found. Let the part of you that's been searching weep if it needs to. Grieve the fantasy of the grand reveal. Grieve the pressure you've been carrying. Grieve the belief that you needed to be someone other than who you are. And then let your spirit laugh. Let it celebrate the simplicity you've been avoiding, the truth you've been running from, the love that's been waiting for you to come home. Your purpose isn't out there. It's in the way you breathe, the way you listen, the way you touch the world with care. It's in the courage to be soft in a hard world, to be honest in a culture of pretense, to be present in an age of distraction. It's not hiding from you. It never was. It's been here all along, woven into every moment, every choice, every breath, waiting for you to stop looking and start seeing. So stop searching, start noticing, start trusting, start being. And watch how your life, exactly as it is, begins to shimmer with meaning you couldn't see before. Not because anything changed, but because you did. You stopped waiting for your life to begin, and you realized it already had. Your purpose was never hiding. You were just standing too far away to feel it. Come closer. It's been here all along.